What's up, everybody? I'm John Middlekauff. You know what I need you to do. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We got content for days reacting to every NFL game all the time, every single day. Subscribe, like the videos. Let's go. What is going on? It's not quite Friday, but Fugazi Friday. Happy Halloween and happy the New York Jets. Say this out loud. The New York Jets, Aaron Rodgers, have won a football game. And honestly, in the second half, they did it. It was a nice little half. I mean, it's got to be the best half of football they've played in a long time. So props to the Jets. We will dive into their side of everything. The Texans, they got some issues. I just looked up some stats on sacking the quarterback. Not on defense when your quarterback gets sacked. And it was pretty alarming where they sit. And let's face it, I don't know if it's the chicken or the egg, but he's getting hit a lot and he's not playing well. Now I get the receiver. We'll dive into it, but the Texans fall to 6-3. The Jets, it's kind of crazy to say because even Herb Street now, like they got life. It's like, guys, they're 3-6. They had like 12 penalties. They dropped a touchdown before they crossed the end zone. Yeah, they won a game. They have life. Let's pump the brakes. But hey, a win's a win for Jeff Ulbrich. Hey, we've talked a lot about this, but I've just been thinking so much about it. Want to just touch on just does the NFL have a development problem when it comes to quarterbacks? Because I think it's pretty clear that something has happened these last 3 or 4 years that is different than throughout the NFL history. And then obviously a Halloween theme. Fugazi Friday. But before we dive in, I mean, hell, if you're a Jets fan, maybe your team goes on a little winning streak. Hey, if you live out in Scottsdale, I just checked their next game at Arizona, which if Arizona beats the Bears, it'd be a pretty big game. So I would imagine there'll be a lot of Jets fans there. If you want to go to any game, college, pro, any football game, the NBA's off and running. College basketball has to be right around the corner if it hasn't started already. You got the NHL off and running. Concerts every day on Instagram. I see someone at a concert having a good time. Well, you know, my friends, my partners, the official ticketing app of this podcast, Game Time, download that app because I'm telling you, it's so easy to search. Price points are for what any of your needs. You want to sit high, don't have much. You want to sit low, you got a little extra coin. You want to see the view when you're searching. It is so easy to use. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code JOHN, John, that's my name, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, JOHN, $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Let's give the Jets a standing ovation. Come on. They won a game. The Jets won. Aaron Rodgers, Woody Johnson, Davante Adams scored a touchdown. Jeff Ulbrich, Todd Downing, Hackett. I didn't even think I saw him tonight. Fireman Ed, Halloween night. The Jets win a game. Gotta be honest, the first half I was jealous of everyone with children who were out and about trick-or-treating, not being forced to watch the Jets, not score a point. And you went, are we, I don't know if I can do this again. Just come on, be really negative. The Jets are dead. This franchise sucks. Who are they going to hire? I keep texting everyone I know. Rex Ryan, like I'm not jumping off that bandwagon. Rex Ryan is going to be the next head coach of the Jets. That's a strong, educated guess. I do believe that. But right now, and as Herb Street now, like they're not dead. It's like, guys, let's pump the brakes. They won a game. Let's just go the good, bad, and the ugly. I think the good, if you're the Jets, Aaron Rodgers at 40 years old, thoroughly outplayed CJ Stroud. If you're just watching that game and you knew nothing about football and you're just watching the two quarterbacks play, clearly the best quarterback played for the Jets. He threw 3 second-half touchdowns, and 2 of them, the Davante one and the second Garrett Wilson one. Second Garrett Wilson was I think 3-19 or 3-18 or 3rd-and-18. And he a little bit of a lollipop throw, incredible pass, but you know, Aaron trusts his guy. The touchdown to Davante, I mean, looked a little old school Packers. 3rd and 3, just get the corner. Davante, give him a little stutter step, goes right around him, easy touchdown. Hit Garrett Wilson on just, to me, the one where Garrett makes the incredible play in the back of the end zone. I mean, Rodgers gave him a chance, but that is like on the pie chart of like quarterback, wide receiver credit. Like I'm giving like 90% to Garrett Wilson. The first touchdown on the crosser when Aaron's about to get smoked, that's just a high level play. I mean, Garrett Wilson has 2 touchdowns tonight, and he didn't use his left hand. So great plays by him. You get Davante, who looked like he was KO'd, comes back in the game. So an offense that I Googled it at halftime, they were 25th in the NFL coming into this week in scoring, averaging like 18 points a game. They averaged like 10 points a game in the first half, which is like 18th. They didn't score a touchdown a night. So after the first half, you're like, I don't know if I could do it. And then Aaron gains a little life. I do think the overhyping of Breece Hall is an all-time like football nerd moment this offseason when everyone was telling me you had to draft him number 1 in fantasy. He's going to be one of the best. He's a good player. But I think the best running back in this game was on the other team. But they get both those guys going. It takes a little pressure off them. Here's the one thing you'd say about Davante. A couple times when Aaron checks out of that run and hits them on those quick screens and they just get an easy 7, 8, 10 yards. Because Davante did have a bad drop early in the game. And you just think to yourself, is it the jerseys? Is it the Jets jerseys doing it to these guys? And then he gets a little life in the second half. Garrett Wilson was just a man amongst boys with those 2 plays. And you're just like, okay, this is just, they played like a real team, at least offensively for moments. Now, like, is this a sustainable thing? I don't know. I mean, I think it's just reiterated when you watch him play his movement ability. The one thing, CJ played a shitty game, but CJ can really move, especially in the West Coast, Kyle Shanahan offense, a lot of play action, getting him on. Like, he's a really good athlete. Obviously, he's young and healthy. Well, I don't know for how long if he keeps getting hit like that. Every time Rodgers takes a couple steps, it's like he ain't going anywhere. So he's got to take advantage in the pocket. He really needs the 2 wide receivers. Luckily, as we saw tonight, I mean, Garrett Wilson's a pretty special talent. I mean, his second touchdown catch is they started showing the Beckham. That is an incredible catch. I mean, when the season is done, there can't be 3 or 4 better catches than that. And there's a chance that goes down as like one of the best catches, if not the best catch of the season. You got the 2 running backs. It is hard to play offensive football when you have 4 offensive tackles on your offensive line. Now, it's not their fault. They got injuries. You're forced to put guys up there. Obviously, Barrett Tucker's out. You have your rookie starting or playing a lot of left guard. He's a left tackle, which I give him a lot of credit for even trying, but I don't know if that's necessarily a winning formula over the course of games, especially depending on a matchup. If you play a good team with 2, good defensive interior pass rushers, but the Texans, once Will Anderson got hurt, couldn't quite take advantage and get to Rodgers. And even when they got close, he got rid of the ball quick. Like overall, especially the second half, like that's Rodgers' crowning achievement so far as a New York Jet, but by a country mile, to be honest with you. I mean, that half, if you're a Jets fan, was like, God, we've been waiting till Halloween for that, and it's, I will keep hammering this home. It is not what it used to be. Once Davante caught that ball, and that's like their 69th, I think, touchdown together, and they threw it back to 2021, the last time he threw a touchdown pass to Davante with the Packers. Like, that's a different player right there in 2021. But if they could just get more halves like that, like, I just think at least you would have a chance in games. Because you've been watching some of these games, you're like, I don't know, man. This is such smoke and mirrors. Even against the Patriots, I know they had a late lead, but I mean, the Patriots are one of the worst teams in the league. Short week, get a win, especially with all the bad juju there. They do have a bunch of injuries. I mean, Sauce, it feels like goes down like every 2 or 3 series, and he hasn't really had a great season. But another bright spot tonight was, I mean, that pass rush was flying around. So one thing, like their defense isn't as good. You can run the ball on them with ease. I mean, any good running back is going for 100 on these guys. But if I can get you in passing situations, the thing we've heard, the last couple of years, even with their shitty quarterback play, the Jets have a fantastic pass rush. Not as good this year because they've lost depth. And up until 2 weeks ago, they hadn't had Reddick, and he was basically replacing Huff, who was an 11-sack guy. But tonight, like, all their players were flying around, and they sacked CJ 8 times, which we'll get into here in a minute, but that's not normally going to happen. But if they can consistently get pressure, like, yeah, they can be a lot more competitive because stopping the run is not going to be something they're going to be able to do. I mean, I don't know if Will McDonald and Hassan Reddick are great run players. And beside Quinn and Williams, like, I will run the ball right at Kinlaw. And, their DBs, I wouldn't exactly call, Steve Atwater and John Lynch back there. But pass defense is something the last couple of years they felt very confident about because they would get after your ass up front. And that was a point of differentiation for the franchise, even when their offense was an embarrassment with the quarterback situation. It was the pass rush would smother quarterbacks, and their DBs can all cover. Obviously, Sauce, when he's healthy and playing well, high end player. DJ Reed, excellent player. And so you got multiple high end corners, which most teams have one good corner, maybe. So if you can get back to that, I still think when you can't slow down the run, like that is just a problem. And that's why the other opponent, whether it's a good team like the Texans or a bad team like the Patriots, are going to be in games. I mean, in 10 days, they play Arizona. Well, what does Arizona have? They have James Conner, who is just like Joe Mixon. And they also have a quarterback who is way faster than CJ. And you saw a couple times CJ got to the edge, but his ankle's been banged up, and he's probably not quite as fast as if he was healthy. I mean, one time he was running, it looked like he was going to have an easy first down. He was like a yard short. I think they ended up getting it the next play, but like if that's Kyler Murray, that's an easy first down. So that's still a pretty big concern. Like I'm not going to pound my chest if I'm a Jets fan, and like you'd be crazy. Now listen, New York people, I would imagine tend to be a little more pessimistic with this stuff. But yeah, and to me, like this is up until the last 10 minutes when the Jets scored a couple touchdowns, it was the most Jets game of all time. I mean, it really was. They had number 14 drop the touchdown when he's walking in the end zone. I literally was sitting on the couch watching it. He scores. I get up, I think, to like grab a water or take a leak or something, kind of screw around with something. I just expect the extra point, come back. I kind of have it timed out in my head. I got a pretty good idea. I've been watching a lot of football in my life. And I come back and I see it's 0-0. Like, and the Texans have the ball at the 20-yard line. Like, what happened? And they roughed a punter. They roughed a snapper. They had a million other penalties. But hey, you can overcome penalties. You can overcome turnovers when you score touchdowns. And for a stretch in the second half, they scored touchdowns. And they were relatively potent on offense compared to what they have been before. So the Jets aren't in a position where they are going to, apologize for anything, as they should not. A win's a win. You saw life out of Davante, which is big. I mean, I think one question mark with him is like, is he still the same guy? Like, is this guy, like, what's going on there? And he had a move, I think, against, is it Lassiter? The kid from Georgia, the rookie, who's actually a pretty good player, smoked him on a route. That was the one where they thought he got the concussion. But like Davante's never been a speed demon. And at this point in time in his career, he's probably like a 4.8 guy. But guess what? You can be an outstanding player even if you're slow, if you're an elite route runner and you have, elite feet. Like you can have great feet and not be super fast. Keenan Allen, DeAndre Hopkins, and that's how you separate as a route runner, especially your release. And that's always something Davante has hung his hat on. So to me, if Davante can bring what he brought tonight and Garrett Wilson can play, at an all-star level because he's clearly an all-star talent, and they can just keep Rodgers somewhat upright and just get, some momentum, like their offense shouldn't just suck, even if he can't run. And he can't. Like, so the boots and everything, like he's just got to be a pocket quarterback. But yeah, props to the Jets. I mean, what a crazy moment. It's cool. Like the one thing I do relate to, having been, fired, relieved of my duties, not having my contract renewed in the NFL. That's a tough spot to be in. The players are used to kind of being mercenaries in the NFL because you get cut all the time. Your contracts aren't guaranteed. You're kind of playing like the majority of guys aren't Aaron Rodgers or Quinn Williams or, CJ Stroud. Like you're not exactly on scholarship in the NFL. So players are used to that. But coaches, like You get somewhere, all of a sudden the guy gets fired. You pretty much know, like, I'm not going to be here at the end of the year. And you talk about, you tell your players this all the time: be a pro, stay focused, be a pro, stay locked in, cut out the outside noise. Like, that's hard. It's why players struggle to do it. Well, coaches are no different. You look at that entire staff, like, they know they got 2 more months living in New York before they're handed their pink slips and the Jets hire Rex Ryan. And it's just, you just got to keep grinding. You got to keep working. It's probably easier on a Thursday night game. You don't even get any time to think. You basically have 2.5 days, to get ready for the game. You're exhausted from the previous week's game, right? You're traveling on Sunday. You get home. You probably go right to the office. Got to be exhausted. They got to have an incredible, like, Red Bull, Adderall cocktails for the last 48 hours. But it's a tough position to be in. Now, these guys, majority of these guys on that staff, highly compensated. So it's not like they're not going to, these guys aren't going to be on the street not being able to pay for groceries. I mean, tight end coaches are making $450,000, let alone the coordinators making 7 figures. I mean, Ulbricht's probably making $2.5 million. So listen, these guys are making a lot of money, but you're still a human being about to lose your job and have to uproot your family. I get it. It's the life you chose, but it's got to be a shitty situation. And on the flip side, I looked right before I hopped on here as the game was the last couple of minutes of the game when it was clear the Texans were going to lose. Coming into this week, so it doesn't count this game, the Cleveland Browns had their quarterback, which the majority of it was obviously Deshaun Watson. I didn't look last week how many times Jameis was sacked, but their quarterback had been sacked 37 times, which was leading the league by 10 sacks. So the next group, which, wait for the teams, the Patriots, the Giants, the Raiders, and the Bears. The Bears are the only functional team of that group, but their offensive line, like that other group, are terrible. We're all at like 27-26. And coming into this week, the Texans were 23. So they weren't that far behind. The Browns were kind of an outlier, and the Texans were near the top of the league in terms of getting their CJ Stroud hit and sacked. Well, tonight they had 8. So as we sit here today, beside the Browns, and I get it, they've played an extra game. Now, some of these, depending on your bye week, they're at 31 sacks. So you watch them, and every single week, depending on their matchup, like last week, I had them on a smaller TV. Every time I'd look up, it's like, this guy's just getting crushed. He gets hit constantly. And I get it. They missed on the left guard, and he gets injured, and they bring in the other guy, and he's getting smoked. But it feels like he is getting pressured when you just watch them play at a higher rate than 90% of the league. And then you look at the numbers, like, yeah, well, he is. And then you watch him play when he does have some time. It's like, he does not look that good. I mean, there was a play on 3rd down where they called a play action, classic Shanahan route, easy layup throw for these guys, especially someone of CJ Stroud's caliber. And Tank Dell, wide open, past the first down marker, would have been an easy first down. CJ's not even throwing a hard ball. And he just, obviously, Tank's not the biggest player, but it's one of those, you just hit him in the breadbasket, hit him in stride. It's something a player of his level should do with ease. And he airmails him. And then, honestly, at the end of the game, there was a play that kind of broke down. CJ kept alive, which he did a lot tonight because he is a pretty good athlete. Mechie breaks it off last minute, cuts into the end zone on kind of a freelance play, but they're on the same page. CJ sees him. Should have been a pretty easy touchdown. I think the second half of the season, 2023 CJ Stroud, that's a touchdown. Tonight, it felt like he missed him by a mile. So, yeah, he's getting crushed. He is getting hit nonstop, which is kind of crazy because when Mixon's in the game, they're running the ball pretty well. But it doesn't really matter whether it's 3rd and 10 or 3rd and 3. If they pass, like, he is under duress. And when he does have a little time, I don't know if he's just thinking about it because it would have to get into your head a little bit, like someone's going to hit me. But he looks bad. And listen, road game, short week. Like, I'm not writing the guys off after tonight, but tough situation. But I think for a couple weeks now, he just hasn't been playing that well. Obviously, their best wide receiver, who is like Mike Evans 2.0, is injured. I get it. That's a problem. but like you're a high level guy. I've anointed you as like, this guy's like a top 5 quarterback. It's like Mahomes, Lamar, Allen, Herbert, CJ. It's like, well, they don't look like that. I mean, you just got outplayed by the 40-year-old that we've all been making fun of. So rough night for Stroud, rough night for that offensive line. When your offensive line is that bad, it really, I just can't take you seriously as a team. And this was a team that your boy sprinkled a little money on for 8-1 to be the number 1 seed. Well, that's a wrap. That ain't happening. And this is where, if you're the Colts, like, this is the reason. Like, this is why you bench Anthony Richardson. You should have beat that team. I mean, they can't protect their quarterback. And it's not like their offense is very potent right now. So that's, I don't know. I like their coach. How can you not? Will Anderson, rolls his ankle, tries to play through it, doesn't come back for the second half. Their corners are good. I mean, those, honestly, even on the second touchdown that Garrett Wilson had, the DB was all over him. It's like sometimes good offense just beats good defense. They've been saying in the NBA forever, like, they're going to be Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan jump shots that I don't give a shit if you're the greatest defender in the history of the sport. Like, they're going to hit it over you. And that's kind of that moment. You just kind of tip your hat to it. Honestly, the first touchdown, when the DB kind of cut it off and got greedy, instead of just playing the player, tackling him, and that was a big swing because he misses the ball. Garrett makes an Odell Beckham one-hander catch and walks the thing into the end zone. And then the last touchdown, DB just got smoked against Davante Adams, who's, I don't know if he will be, but I mean, at one point in time, we all thought the guy was going to be a Hall of Famer. The NBA is finally back. A new season means new ways to get into the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Who's draining threes from beyond the arc? Who's hitting the boards, getting rebounds? Get behind your favorite players on prop bets you can make on DraftKings, the home of NBA player props. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting something simple, like picking a team to win. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and place your bet. First time, new DraftKings customers bet $5 to win $200 in bonus bets instantly. Take it to the rack with DraftKings Sportsbook. Every point counts. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. This is one you just got to lick your wounds, and it's going to be a long flight home to Houston. So props to the Jets. And speaking of quarterback development, I've been seeing so many tweets and things on my Instagram about the NFL has a quarterback development problem. It's all I see. And it's like, it starts listing all the names. Anthony Richardson, benched. Bryce Young, Trey Lance, benched. Will Levis, benched. Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett, benched. Obviously, a lot of highly drafted quarterbacks have been benched, traded, not worked out. I also think the group of a lot of these names that we're throwing out, up until the quarterback inflation, which I think there was an inflection point right around Mahomes and Josh Allen. When those two guys hit, everyone just went bananas on drafting quarterbacks that historically, in NFL history, never would have been drafted that high. For the overwhelming majority of my life, guys like Mac Jones and Kenny Pickett were like Kirk Cousins. They went on the third day of the draft. Let's use Bryce Young. Up until Russell Wilson, and honestly, comparing Russell Wilson to Bryce Young feels a little crazy, given one guy weighs like 180 pounds and the other guy's like 220 pounds and has a massive arm. Definitely did when he was young. I think it's pretty crazy. But Russell Wilson, as a 5'10 guy, he was almost 5'11, went in the third round. This guy at 5'9", $185, went number 1 overall. Trey Lance played one season at North Dakota State. One season where, honestly, the majority of his play was running the ball against, I would say, 99% of the guys he played against that season are never did play on Sundays. And then Anthony Richardson, while he is an NFL body and a physical freak, started one season over like 5 years. So in the history of guys like Bryce Young, a guy 5'9", might have gone undrafted in like 1996. Trey Lance, small school, one season. Honestly, even he's like a third or fourth round project 20 years ago. Anthony Richardson, maybe he goes in the second round, but that guy in the history of the league, up until that inflection point, is never sniffing the top 5 of a draft. So all I hear is this quarterback development issues we have. Maybe we're just drafting quarterbacks that never got drafted that high, when we already had guys who had accomplished way more in college and fit the bill and also struggled. It's a tough position to play. It really is. And the other thing with quarterbacks, like think about like venture capital, right? It's gotten really popular because all these guys become famous because they get the most money and they can buy sports teams. Well, if I take a lump sum of my firm has $250 million, right? And I spread it out. I give it to 10 different startups, 20 different startups. I diversify my portfolio. And if one of them turns into Google or Apple or Netflix or whatever, that one alone dwarfs all the money that I put out. And if I just hit on a couple that are like 5 or 10xers, I'm in the clear. I'm cool with missing on a ton of them. Well, think about a draft. You have 7 or 8 draft picks. It's why all the time at every other position, you can draft the same position multiple times throughout a draft. And over the course of 2 years, let's say a team has 14 draft picks. Maybe over that period of time, they draft 3 offensive linemen or 4 defensive backs or 3 defensive linemen. So over the course of like 2 or 3 years, yeah, the second round defensive lineman, you know what? It turns out he sucked. But you know the guy we got in the 5th round? Oh, yeah, Max Crosby. No one ends up talking about the second rounder anymore. It happens all the time. Like, oh, how about our first round wide receiver? And 2 years later, the 4th rounder is way better. And everyone's like, pay this guy, Nico Collins. Well, at quarterback, when you draft a guy really high, what happens? You typically don't draft another one for several years. So that guy's kind of on an island. And when that guy's bad, it feels like there's no replacement. It's just him. And obviously at that position, it's way more famous. We talk about him way more. They are the most important guy in terms of if he's good. It's like investing in Uber. There is no draft pick. There is no trade up high enough to get one of the star quarterbacks. But everyone has so desperately tried with the Anthony Richardsons, with the Trey Lances, to try to get the next Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen or Justin Herbert. Those guys are outliers. And I think we're seeing it right now. But this notion of like, Anthony Richardson got done dirty by his team, because I've seen some people around football is like, how are you supposed to develop this guy if he's not playing? Well, what are you supposed to say to the other fucking guys on the team? Like, hey guys, we don't give a shit about winning any of these games. We're just going to develop them. And yeah, Ryan Kelly, I know you're just laying the line. Your whole entire body hurts. You're one of the better players, in our franchise over the last 25 years. Probably not going to win as many games because this guy can't hit water from a boat. But hey, man, this is what we're doing. They couldn't do that. So even if you separate the tap out helmet thing, you can only get so far with a competitive team. If you're the Panthers, if you're the Patriots, if you're whatever, it's like you can just roll with the guy because you're going to lose no matter what. But when you have a chance to win every week, you can't roll that out there. Because in all those other positions, they all know, like, I could have easily been replaced. It's basically the Hunger Games at every other position. That any moment, like the next year, this 4th rounder, holy shit, is he better than me? And all of a sudden, I get benched, I get cut, I get traded, and that guy becomes a starter. They all see it. And the quarterback's like, oh, we got to take care of him. We got to be careful with him. You can do that if he's like a great player. And even then, you better treat it very carefully. You cannot do that if the guy's average or below. And if the guy's a liability and not good enough, and you do that, you're going to get fired. So to me, like, not only they make the right decision, they had the right mindset when they picked him. And let's face it, as we sit here today, it's a disastrous pick. It doesn't get much worse. It really doesn't. It's like a better version of Trey Lance, but still extremely bad. I mean, because he's a better player, but similar outcome. Like, I don't think you can win many games with this guy because you can't. And it's the coaching staff and the GM, like, they can discuss it all they want. The locker room turns on you. And the locker room knew. And they made that decision, not because Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen, like, truly because they knew the locker room would tap out and then they would lose the team. Okay, before we get out of here, I talked to someone today. I I don't have any trick or treaters. I moved to this house last year. I don't know if it's the part of the community I live in. We don't have street lights. We bought 7 million pounds of candy last year. I was so excited. She even made Rice Krispie treats, special ones with M&Ms. We're just gonna have a bash. All these little kids. Didn't get one person. Actually, we did, but it was because she put a post on next door. They just aren't trick or treaters, which was kind of disheartening. But someone told me, I was talking to them within the last couple of days, that they remember last year they were taking their kids and someone had a bowl with toothbrushes. This is, to me, the 4th of July for little kids. It is an incredible holiday for little kids. And any human being, if you don't want to participate, I have no issue with it. Turn off your lights and just don't participate in Halloween. People won't walk up to the door. But if you are going to put something out there, and listen, I'm pro health. Health is wealth. And candy, I've already had too much this week. I understand. I'm trying to get a workout in 6, 7 days a week. So I'm pro that. And I understand some people do not condone giving all the kids. There are two options. You either don't participate, turn the house lights off, or you hand out candy. Anything else, obviously, if you're like messing around, giving beers out to people or whatever, having fun. I'm just talking about anything like toothbrushes, fruit, you should be arrested. I mean, you really should. You something is wrong with you. Like you're not teaching life lessons on Halloween. This is a night. I've been alive 40 years. And from the moment I could trick or treat, still to this day, because my brother's taking his kids, they went trick or treating today, they can have as much candy as they want. It's just one of those moments. And if you push back against it, you got problems. And you, deep down in my soul, make me very angry, because that's just whack job behavior. It really is. Hand out toothbrushes. Like, you do understand all these parents that are bringing their kids, they have their toothbrushes are at home, in their bathrooms, in the sink. Like, they don't need your fucking toothbrush. You're not Dr. Mandelaris. That was my dentist back in the day. Like, you don't need to hand out toothbrushes and fruit. Like, give me a break. Did you ever try to feed a kid fruit? They throw it on the ground. So let's just two options. And I know most people listening, you're probably all with me, but there are a few of you that know a few people that should be. I don't know what we do. I'd be cool like arresting, but definitely a citation. Something has to happen. If you are participating, lights on, and you have anything but candy out there, you got problems.